Well, it's a smoking hot day here in Alberta. It's September the 1st. It is our Labor Day weekend. And I thought I'd hide out in the shade to do this video about the third reason why I hate my husband, tongue in cheek. Now, it has to do with how we met each other. And we met each other on Plenty of Fish. It's a dating website, and a lot of you might be familiar with it. Now, I'm not sure how else I would be meeting anybody because I don't go to church. I, at that point, was nursing, and most of the people you work with are women. So you really don't meet anybody in full-time night shifts. And how do you meet anybody when you're in that sort of circumstance? So I decided to try Plenty of Fish. And so did my current husband. He tried it too. And there's no way on earth we would have met each other other than using this dating app, even though we lived about an hour apart from each other, but our worlds never collided on any way. So there it was. He went on 3 full dates, and it took 3 weeks, and I was his third coffee date. And he, of course, he hit the jackpot when he met me. It took me 2 years. I had coffee meets or arranged coffee meets for 30 different guys in that point. I had to take breaks because when you get irritated or you get a little bitter or a little jaded over what or who you meet, you do need to take breaks. But I did meet about 30 people, and I was going through my mind trying to figure out who they all were, and I could only come up with 15, but I do recall the 30, and that was just a joke that me and husband had between each other because of how he was and how difficult it was for me. But in the end of the day, I met the most wonderful guy, and again, just grateful to Plenty of Fish. Anyway, I wrote out, I don't even remember the guys' names anymore, but I did write out things about them to help me remember, and I made a list. So if I'm glancing down, I'll come up with that. So there was the one guy. Now he was in music ministries. He was like an assistant pastor. Anyway, he decided to quit his job and to go on to Plenty of Fish and he was flat out saying he was wanting to sin. He was wanting to mess around with as many women as he could before he would straighten his life out with God and go back into the ministry. So I was just going to be somebody that he used. So in the end of the day, that was kind of turned me right off. And of course, there was the phone calls after saying how I'll never meet anybody as wonderful as him, blah, blah, blah. But in the end of the day, I don't know where he is, but I'm happily married. Let's see. On this one guy, I think he was my first that I dated. Now, I dated him too soon in my breakup from my ex-husband, Bill, because when we were sitting there having coffee and chatting, I found out that he was an acquaintance of Bill and knew him. And well, then my mouth started because of all the selling the equipment out of the backside of his van for crack money and leaving me with $100,000 in debt over the equipment we had bought for our sound company. And my mouth just started going, and I could just look at his face, and I'm like, oh man, he seemed like such a nice guy. But yeah, I knew, and it was like, so nice to meet you, and I'm so sorry. And that was the end of that. Oh, and then there was the guy. Now I'll show you a picture of the shape I was in when we met. Now he decided that I had to yet lose another 20 pounds in order to date his self. And so I got rid of his 180 pounds because there's no thank you. And then there was a guy named Tim. Now he was cute. He was a lot of fun, very charming. He took me on a motorbike trip. It was wonderful. It was just wonderful. And then I asked him, because I'd already been married 3 times, I was of the mind that marriage doesn't or shouldn't be mandatory. It shouldn't be a you have to get married at this point. If it happens, whatever, but nothing mandatory here. And also there was the issue of children, because there were some men that still wanted kids. And although I was 45 when this all started, I wasn't going to untie the ties that bind and have kids with anybody. But there were some men there that still wanted kids, and so that I had to deal with that as well, even though I was long in the tooth. But this guy had a conversation with him, and he decided that he was Catholic and that he absolutely had to get married again because he wanted to fight his ex-wife for custody of his kid. And well, I was a nurse, and that would just all look great on paper. And I thought, well, now you're just using me, and that just all felt gross. So it was goodbye to him as well. Oh, there was also a nice man named Darren. Now, had a few dates with him. He was very personable, very kind. He had met two of us sort of at the same time, coffees, and he decided he liked both of us, but he was going to pursue the one that he had met first. And in the end of the day, they did get married. And I could send him a message now, and he's fine and friendly, and he's met Owen, and he's just a very nice man. Ooh, and then there's the married soldier. He was a UK soldier, and they were doing whatever practices in Alberta. And so I met with him, and let's see here. After a couple of dates, he was in my home, and he went through my computer, went through my pictures, and was just aggravated and angry that I had pictures of my ex in there. And in the end of the day, I found out that he was married. So it was like, who are you to be jealous of anything in my computer when you, dude, have a wife at home? So yeah, gone. Let's see, Butterfly George. Now, very handsome, tall, dark, and handsome, very personable, very musical. I quite really, really liked this guy. Only to find out that I was one of many ports that he was visiting, and he was just a butterfly, and he was flitting all over the place. And in the end of the day, he decided to do some long-term relationshiping with a gal who was 23 and he was almost 60, because she's so mature at 23. And I thought, oh boy. So when I was dating Owen, he had sent a message through to me, and I said, look, I found somebody. And so he said that he had messed up badly with me, and I said, yes, you did. And that was the end of it. Oh, and in the middle of all this, there was 3 no-shows. So 10% of the people that I met were no-shows. I have heart attacks when I have hornets flying around me. I just don't like that at all. And then there was the guy who lived in a trailer court on the rough side of town. Now, again, tall, dark, and handsome, very nice. Lived in a kind of a broken down trailer. And he told me that his life ambition is to work for half a year and then do nothing for half a year and get in a relationship. And I thought, well, I can see where this path is going, because once again, the nurse with the purse thing was raising its head, and I just didn't want a part of that either. Kind of need 2 people rowing the boat in the same direction to make a relationship work. So that was goodbye to him. And let's see here. There was a guy from a bar in town. He owned it, and he was wanting to meet and have a date. And instead of having a date, one of his things to do, he sent me a dick pic. And I thought, well, this is gross. And I was talking to another friend of mine, and she did have a date with him on Plenty of Fish, and he pretty much assaulted her. So that it was like, yeah, don't need this at all. So I never even went to meet him. And of course, he got all the you'll never meet anybody as great as me. And well, goodbye. Oh, then there was the guy with the picture that you see online, and he looked fine. He looked, my age, and I was waiting in the restaurant, and he comes around, or sorry, somebody comes around the corner, and he was an old guy with a bulbous alcoholic nose. His picture, he said, are you Annette? And I'm like, yes, I am. And he introduced himself, and it was the guy, and he had used a picture 30 years old. And so that, and seeing that he ordered a gin and tonic right away, and he was bragging about having a horse brought up from the United States, that I should come to his place and see it. And I was like, well, he lied in the first place, and that was the end of it for me, because if you're going to start off on a lie, just no thank you, and off he went. And then there was the poor guy that I was set up with, who he shouldn't have been looking, because his wife had just passed, and a very close marriage, and he had a shrine in his house, and all he did was talk about her. And it was like, dude, you need to heal, you need to spend some time alone, and healing, because I just didn't want to live in the shadow of somebody's newly deceased wonderful wife. That was just not somewhere that I wanted to be. I think I skipped over a few, but I saved the best one for last. Now, I called him my almost ex-boyfriend. It was just how close the worlds collide. Now, this guy was a volunteer firefighter, red hair, fairly attractive in his photos and stuff. So, and he wanted to meet, and I was having a nursing in service at the hospital in the city. So I agreed to meet down the hill at the McDonald's when it was over, meet him there. So I was waiting. I got myself all dressed up and looking good, and he comes buzzing in. He was flying through the door, and he was afraid he was being late. And one of the things on his profile said he was separated. Now, I have since learned to be very careful with the word separated, because it means different things to different people. They could mean that you had a fight with your wife yesterday and now you're separated. Anyway, so I asked for information, and he said that he was living in their basement. Oh, and that was just a little bit fishy. And then he said, "Oh, I hope I don't smell funny," because I didn't get home to shower, because he had just been working. And I just dug into my purse, and I pulled out a bottle of perfume, and I pretended to come near him, and he panicked. He absolutely panicked. And I said, "Well, does your ex-wife know that you're out dating?" Because I can imagine that if the wife didn't know, well, then coming home sprayed in perfume would be a problem. And so he was kind of iffy about this. And so I told him, look, you need to deal with your relationship, end your marriage if that's what you're doing. Don't be living with your wife. Just get past this awkward in between stage of separated. And yeah, so he felt a little embarrassed. And when I was on my way home, he asked me for another date, and I'm like, dude, you didn't listen to a word I had to say. So I just like, don't call me anymore. Deal with your own stuff. Now, fast forward to my life with Owen. Now, Owen has two sets of twin daughters, and the youngest set are now 31. Now, one of the younger set was dating a boy named Kyle, and in the end of the day, she married him. And they have these herd parties, and I went to one of the herd parties, and here's this person with this red hair, and come to find out that her soon-to-be father-in-law is my almost ex-boyfriend, Keith. And there's, of course, the ex-wife that is her now new mother-in-law. And in the years that followed, I did speak to her, and I found out that one of the reasons they moved to Red Deer is because he was cheating on her where they lived before. They moved to Red Deer to start fresh, and he was supposed to work on whatever he needed to work on. And his way of working was to get back on Plenty of Fish, and to find other dates and to line them all up. And I was just one of those in there. And I happened to just turn him down. And boy, oh boy, am I grateful I did, because what a mess that would have been. And so, yeah, I told her what had happened. She told me her history, and we all know about everything now, and it's super awkward. And one of the reasons I don't want to go to any herd parties, because that's just yuck. So that's a mosquito. So that's a few of the dates I had. And I'm talking rapidly because otherwise this is going to go on for forever. But yeah, I'm happy now. We're married. We're doing well. And he was worth the 2 years and all the coffee meets, but I would really not want to do that again. So there you have it. My little history with online dating. It served its purpose. There was a lot of fun with it. It was a little nerve-wracking, me meeting people, because I am not the social butterfly that my husband is, and I'll talk about that as one of the other reasons why I don't like him. But in the end of the day, it did turn out fine, and I am grateful. And I decided going forward this month to try to do videos every day, because I need to get more comfortable with speaking. I feel the insides of my guts just kind of churning, and I keep forgetting stuff, and I just want to become more comfortable on doing these videos. And so I will be trying one a day and see how that goes, and see if I feel better at the beginning of October.